It's the classic underdog story. Boy versus giant, good versus evil, David versus Goliath. You've probably heard it before. Goliath, a menacing giant, challenges Israel to send someone forward to fight. While everyone runs in fear, David, the young shepherd boy, steps forward and knocks Goliath to the ground with his slingshot. The good guy wins, and we're all inspired to face our own giants and dare to do the impossible. Except that's not really the point. Let's go back to the beginning of the Bible. God makes this incredible world for man and woman to rule as his representatives. Everything is theirs. The only thing they're not to do is eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God says that when they eat from it, they will die. But soon a serpent enters and starts questioning God. Is he really so good? Should you really trust him? Eat from the tree. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him. The humans fall for the serpent's lies and disobey God by eating from the tree. When they realize what they've done, they hide and cover themselves in shame. God enters and makes it clear to the man and woman that their choice to disobey will have serious consequences. But in his mercy, he doesn't kill them. Instead, he turns to the serpent and says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. But who are the serpent's offspring? And who are the woman's offspring? As the story of the Bible goes on, it becomes clear that the serpent wasn't just a snake, but the very embodiment of opposition to God and his love. This character is soon named the adversary, or in Hebrew, the Satan. So, if the serpent is God's archenemy, the serpent's offspring are those who join him in opposing God. On the other hand, the woman is named Eve, Hebrew for living. She embodies God's forgiveness and redemption, and her offspring are those who choose to join God's saving plan for the world. So, by opposing God, the serpent sets himself and his offspring on a collision course with the woman and her offspring. Yet, most fascinating of all is God's last word to the serpent. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. In other words, although the woman's offspring and serpent's offspring will oppose each other, this conflict will culminate in a clash between the serpent and an individual descendant from the woman. This man will strike the serpent's head, killing it, even as the serpent seriously wounds him, striking his heel. As the Bible goes on, it soon becomes clear that along with the serpent, a new dark force has entered the world, a power called sin. Humans, by their own choice, are now under the authority of this new power, and tragically, it leads to evil and death. But it seems like if someone could destroy sin and the adversary who introduced it, the serpent, its rule over humans could be broken, and they would be free to live as God's representatives once again. So, as the story goes on, one massive question looms in the background. Who is this promised man, the offspring of the woman, who will strike the head of the serpent and defeat the power of sin? Whoever this promised man is, God makes it clear that he will come through the nation of Israel. Israel's first king is a man named Saul. Saul looks like the perfect king. He is tall, handsome, charismatic, and a courageous warrior. What's more, Saul starts his reign by defeating the army of a wicked king named Nahash, or Serpent in Hebrew. Is Saul the promised offspring? It soon becomes clear that Saul is not the deliverer. Instead of trusting in God, Saul begins to proudly follow his own ways. So God warns Saul that another man will replace him as king. Yahweh has sought for himself a man according to his own heart, and Yahweh has appointed him as ruler over his people, because you have not kept what Yahweh commanded you. This new man is a young shepherd named David. Although David is the runt of his family, one thing sets him apart from other men. Yahweh was with him. Shortly after God rejects Saul, he sends a prophet to secretly anoint David as the next king of Israel. And the Spirit of Yahweh leaves Saul and rests upon David. And so we arrive at the story of David and Goliath. The enemy Philistine army has invaded Israelite territory, and the two armies face one another in a 40-day standoff. Each day, a giant Philistine warrior named Goliath steps forward and mocks the Israelites, challenging them to send out a man to fight him. Goliath is dripping with serpent-like qualities. His armor is described as the scales of a serpent, and his weapons are made of bronze, a word which in Hebrew sounds like snake. By choosing to defy Israel, the people God is using to rescue the world, Goliath opposes God and aligns himself with the serpent. So, if Goliath is the serpent's representative, whoever slays Goliath might just be the promised deliverer who has come to defeat the serpent himself. At first glance, Saul is well suited to face Goliath. He's the king of Israel. He's defeated the Philistines before, and like Goliath, Saul stands head and shoulders above other men. But Saul cowers in fear in his tent, showing why God has passed him over. For Saul and his Israelite army, this is just another battle for territory and power. But when David enters, he sees as God sees, and he recognizes that this is no mere battle among men, but a cosmic clash between God and Satan playing out on a human stage. God's name is absent from the story until David speaks. And while the other Israelites complain that Goliath opposes Israel, David realizes that he is actually opposing the God of Israel. Even so, since the battle belongs to Yahweh, David has confidence to fight Goliath. When David, not Saul, steps forward to face Goliath, the true king of Israel emerges, the kind of man that God will send to defeat the serpent, one who sees with God's eyes and is willing to sacrifice himself to save others because he trusts God to vindicate him. David pronounces judgment on Goliath as he walks towards him. You are coming to me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I am coming to you in the name of Yahweh of armies, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. This day Yahweh will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head, so that all the earth may know that there is a God who is for Israel, and that Yahweh does not rescue with sword or with spear, for the battle belongs to Yahweh. David's vow to cut off Goliath's head calls to mind God's earlier promise that a deliverer will come who will strike the head of the serpent. Sure enough, when Goliath advances, David slings a stone into his forehead, and Goliath falls to the ground, crawling on his belly and eating dust, just like the serpent he represents. Taking Goliath's sword, David cuts off his head, and the Philistines flee with fear, pursued by the victorious Israelites. David has just done to Goliath what a man will one day do to the serpent. Could David be that man? Not all want to celebrate that God's promised Savior may have arrived. Saul refuses to acknowledge David's victory, and when David returns holding Goliath's head, he asks about David's lineage, wondering if David could replace him as king. David may be God's chosen deliverer, but Saul treats him only as a threat. Unfortunately for Saul, by choosing to oppose David from this point on, he aligns himself with the serpent. It's no surprise then that Saul's fate is just like the serpent's, when, in a later battle, his own head is also cut off. So, was David God's promised deliverer? Sadly, Despite his triumph over Goliath, David also disobeyed God and failed to strike a deadly blow to the serpent. But, unlike Saul, David's heart always remained close to God. So God promised David that someday one of his descendants would sit on his throne and do what he never could: destroy the serpent and deliver God's people once and for all. David, a shepherd who puts his life on the line to deliver his people, points ahead to the true shepherd whose life will be cut off to defeat sin and Satan. David, therefore, is a prototype of a man to come, one of his own descendants. Anticipation grows as David's descendants each reign as king, but they act more and more wickedly, and soon God kicks them out of the land. Centuries pass, and it seems like God's rescue plan to save the world through Israel and David has ended in failure. Yet some remain hopeful that the promised offspring of the woman will still come. The New Testament begins with a distant grandson of David, a man named Jesus the Messiah, who is called the Son of David. Jesus claimed that he had come to fulfill God's age-old promise to defeat the serpent and the power of sin. As God said would happen, the serpent struck Jesus' heel, sending him to what seemed like a tragic death by crucifixion, where his feet were nailed to a tree. But Jesus said that by his death, he cast out Satan, disarmed the dark spiritual forces of the world, and destroyed sin and death. In other words, while Satan struck his feet, Jesus struck Satan's head. How did he do this? Jesus rose from the dead and broke Satan's greatest weapon, death itself. And now he promises to share his victory of life with all who follow him. So, is David and Goliath a great underdog story? Perhaps, but more than this, it points us to the ultimate David, the one who tasted death so that all might be saved.